but early. Clearly very eager, Luke. So we'll give him a minute or so and then we'll crack on.
Great. Do you know sometimes when you hear people say, like, this stuff took whatever, 2 hours to write, so it should take 2 hours to read, and that's never true. That's my presentation today. I don't know how long it's going to be, but if I end short, I think that's an unusual twist to my stories. So let's see.
Yeah, I don't actually know, you know, that
hello everybody.
An early finish to what people tend to ask questions and get very excited. So yeah.
I am so ready for this. I tell you that I've got my coffee, I've got my water, I'm ready now. I feel like this session's mine. I couldn't do the Excel one. I was clueless, but this one I feel like I can really benefit from.
Oh, now I'm feeling the pressure, Howard. But
you shouldn't.
I had fun preparing it, so I hope you have fun watching it.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. How's it, Elmarie?
Hi, Howard. How's it?
Oh, I like how you've done already this sort of embossed look. That already works for me.
I stole the logo from our website. Thankfully, it was SVG. So sorry, whoever I owe royalties to, you can send me the invoice.
That's all right.
Animation's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, very.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. As people are joining, we've got a nice group together. I'm conscious of time and that everybody has other commitments after the session. So I think we'll kick off and carry on. So welcome everyone to our last masterclass of the semester. We've definitely saved the best for last. Our very own Luke going to give us some pointers on really how to make PowerPoint more powerful and useful and engaging for audiences when we present in this way. As always, please feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. You're welcome to post it in the chat or to just put up your hand and someone will interrupt Luke and ask him the question. Otherwise, we will, as always, make the recording available at the end of the session. I will also post the link to the feedback form at the end of the session, and I do ask you to please think about any tips or ideas or comments on how we can make these sessions even better for you. Luke, we are very excited for your session. To you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so please do interrupt or stop me. I don't have the chat window on my screen, so I can't really tell. So please do feel free to pause me and interrupt as needed. So guys, thank you so much. I'm very excited. I had fun putting this together. I'm not really sure how it's going to come through over my internet, but I hope it keeps up. So I'm going to dive straight into it. There's a couple of some of them obvious things that I'm going to cover in PowerPoint, and other ones that I feel don't get enough airtime. If anyone YouTubes PowerPoint videos, which I doubt, then I wanted to include some items that I feel are not adequately covered there. And they're sort of the gems that I've discovered for myself that I enjoy using. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to share that with everyone. There's really 6 areas that I'm going to cover today, and I'm going to just dive straight in. If we finish early and you want to go back to any of these sections, see how we actually did it, I'm very happy to do that, and we can sort of reverse engineer it in PowerPoint to sort of show you all of my secrets on how I got there. So that's it, yeah. Who's brave enough to unmute their microphone and tell us what you see on the screen right now?
Keep it simple, stupid.
Lovely. Okay. I've never been a great person to follow this. It's more of an aspiration for me, Jake. So as correct as you are in that one, I've had to kind of modify it for myself, and I'll share with you my version. It's definitely keep it surprisingly simple, and because I'm not that concise, snappy, smooth. That's the way, that's the closest I could get in my PowerPoint to what Jake said.
The art part of it gets.
Unfortunately, it's not safe for work. So, I kind of have to redact that a little bit. However, I do want to set that tone that the secret I'm finding very difficult to achieve, but a constant goal to aim for, a constant objective is to keep it those things. And I've discovered that there's really 2 parts to that idea that I wanted to share with you, and I'm really stretching the acronym there beyond what I should. But there's 2 parts that I've found with PowerPoint. The first one is where we focus on the content. So one way of keeping it simple is to focus on the content. And anyone who's worked with me on any product development or project work, you'll know that I push this idea of a design document. And it's very central to how I use PowerPoint on I would say, day-to-day level when I'm not presenting to people who want to see shiny slides. I use it as a tool. I went on a master architects class many years ago. It's probably about 11 years ago now. And that was one of the pieces of advice I got from, it was Yuval Lowy, who I have a lot of respect for. If you haven't heard of him, you should go check him out. He said, PowerPoint is the architect's tool. And I didn't really understand what he meant. And this is how I put that idea into practice, is I use it as a tool for myself as an architect. The reason it's quite nice is because I can zoom in on the content, just the content. It's not about pretty pictures. It's actually deliberately meant to be plain and simple. That's what my design documents look like. And if you put any sort of themes or colors on, I'll send it back. And my team knows me. They said, I'll take it off, get rid of it. I want the plain white background that comes with PowerPoint when you just open up a new presentation. And the formula is quite simple with those. If you're interested in design docs, there's really just one rule. The first slide has to be objectives. And that's really it. Everything beyond that is up to you and what you're trying to achieve. But it does allow us to focus on the content. It reminds us constantly that it's not about the presentation, it's about the content. And it's a nice reminder just with that simple look. Ideas and sharing those ideas are quite critical in that journey. That's why we use the design document. It allows us to iterate quickly. So getting good with PowerPoint, knowing your tools, knowing the shortcuts, and how do you exploit it makes life much easier. You are welcome to take photos of real life. If we were at the office, we would have whiteboard drawings. Welcome to use those. But the point is that it's not that you're not allowed to add content, like images and photos. The rule is that it's got to be about the ideas. So you're welcome to go crazy. And then we also use the simple and rough drawings. That's fine. It's not for presentation. It's for ideation. I don't even know if that's the right word or if that is a word. So that's really the gist of it. And it's quite a valuable technique. Something that I've discovered fairly recently with my team is that embracing 3D for these design docs is quite fun and something quite novel. I'm still getting used to it. And we have certain areas of our product architecture where it's actually more intuitive to look at it in 3D than it is to try and draw all the boxes and all the spaghetti lines to join things up. So a shout out to Mirinda. You know, there's an exciting whole frontier for me to explore in terms of how do you represent architecture, software architectures in 3D to get the ideas across, because it allows you to spot the patterns. So as an example, in PowerPoint, you can make these sexy looking cubes. This is easy. You just insert 3D model and there you go. You pick one. It's really, really easy to achieve that. Also, the fantastic part, so the extremely rewarding aspect of these design sessions for me is just to, once you start focusing on the content, on the artifacts, people start pointing at the screen, at the slides, at the thing. And it's incredible to see the energy of how one idea that somebody introduces can cause this chain reaction. You know, you light that fuse and you see this in the session, you see this chain reaction of this idea sparked an idea in somebody else's mind. Let's quickly duplicate the slide. Let me tell you what I was thinking. And then they manipulate it. And then there's something, there's a slide. And then that sparks the next idea. And by the end of the session, we all look back at what we've come up with. And it's incredible because it's definitely better than any one of us could have come up with on our own. And that feeling of 1 + 1 = 3 absolutely, you know, makes these, you know, one of my favorite activities to be doing is having these design sessions. So that creativity, we're not bound by the distractions of having to present it. It's all about the content, and having something to point at also slows down the sessions. You can say, hang on, I didn't catch what you were saying. Just slow down. Let me capture that idea, or let me just draw the picture quickly. And that allows people to think. Those little pauses that having to put it in a document creates, it gives people time to think. The other cool part is there's no homework. So by the end of the session, the design document, the artifact is good to go. You don't have to go back and document anything. We did it in the session. So that's been very cool. So that's the design document. And that's one example of how I've embraced keeping it simple in my architect life. And I urge you to give it a try. It's very easy to set up, and it works quite well. The other side that I've found is obviously for presentations. And I think everyone understands that one. So you're stretching that KISS word as far as I can, maybe too far. It's interesting and super sexy. So that's the other side. And here we want those elegant presentations. And I think it's easier than ever these days to get pretty looking stock images. And PowerPoint has put in a lot of content for us that's ready to use, professional photographs, fantastic icons and images. So there's a huge investment that I see happening recently in the last few months. If you haven't looked at that insert icons, insert images, insert 3D model, I urge you to try it out. In the last few weeks, they've added new content. Now they have a little label saying new. And it's obviously an area of quite a lot of activity at Microsoft. So I'm quite impressed with what's in the box. Something I wanted to draw your attention to is having subtle variations. I understand that subtle variations are a good enough recruiting tool. I think there are people in this audience who once saw Chart's demo, AFGRI demo. And if I'm not mistaken, if you sit there long enough in the background of the farm, there's a tractor that drives past. Yeah, it's, I don't know if it was deliberate or accidental, but it's genius nevertheless. And, you know, maybe later on people can share their story of how that actually goes, or Chart can reflect on whether he was aware of that. But it's those subtle details that do make a difference. I'm still practicing that. I haven't quite got that right. If you haven't noticed them, I just blurred out the static image, and then I've got a two degree wiggle on these little stalks that are cut out of that background image. I didn't do a good job. You can see there's artifacts all the way, but you know, that's for the 2 minutes that I spent cutting them out. That's as close as I could get. It's actually just one stalk that I just rotated a few ways. So it's I'm quite lazy. I only did one. Apologies. Maybe next time I can do more if it matters. So here's that wiggle in the original slide. I don't know if anyone picked it up. Probably not. And I'm still working on it. But an extension of this idea is to use video. So these videos have come from that insert photo, stock photo, and then video. This is in the box. They're pretty cool looking. And I'd say it's an extension of that subtle effect. I really like websites that do this. For me, it's an exciting new avenue to include. It really does depend on people's bandwidth. So I think it's a bit of a risky move. I hope it's coming through okay on your side. But we have these techniques that we can start playing with. Here's another one, same thing. If you look closely, the word presentation, I don't know if you can see the flower petals, you know, are shining through the text. That's quite difficult to achieve in PowerPoint because you can't take text at the moment and say, I want it transparent. So what I actually did is I converted text in Inkscape. We'll come across that later on in my talk, what that is and how we can use it. But I just converted text to a shape in Inkscape, imported it into PowerPoint, and then I could change the color in the background. So it's maybe, you know, 5 extra clicks, but it's an interesting effect that, you know, is not so easy to achieve just using PowerPoint. So that word elegant at the top, that's as close as I can get. It's a solid color that hides the background. Here's another video just because I miss flying in an aeroplane. I think we've all been locked down too long. I just thought it would be cool to see clouds again from this view. So that's the second form of keeping it simple. I'll be very interested in your guys' feedback, you know, and whether these effects are good, whether you like them, maybe you find them annoying. But this is an area that I'm exploring. Those subtle effects for the animation, I think, are quite effective. So the next section, something that sounds strange when you look at this. SVGs and PNGs. What the heck are those? This is that area that I feel is underspoken about with PowerPoint. So I'm going to start with SVGs. So in PowerPoint, you can go to the Insert menu, Icons, and then you get presented with this library of pretty decent icons, I must admit. I've paid real money, real dollars for icon libraries, and this one is pretty decent as far as icon libraries go. I find that I start learning the library. I start remembering the icons that exist. I know how to search for them. I'm just beginning with that because it's a fairly new library to me, but it does help me. If you use emojis, I think it's a similar similar experience, that you get to learn the emojis quite quickly. So here's an example of some cool icons I pulled out from there. Nothing too significant about that. But I do want to point out that these are SVGs, Scalable Vector Graphics. That's what SVG stands for. And it's very important that there are SVGs, and I'll show you in a few more slides why that is significant. But that's the cool part. It wasn't some custom Microsoft format that they went with. It wasn't some proprietary thing that needs licensing. It's SVGs, and we can use them everywhere. And I'll show you some examples of where that can be helpful. Because they're SVGs, you can do some funky things with them, because they're not just images. So I've put in an almost white background, and if they were images, that's all we could do with them. Because they're actual shapes, we can start adding all the effects that PowerPoint has. For example, drop shadows, so that you can make it look as if it's standing out. So this is the same. This is actually, I made the background white and the icons white. So normally without the drop shadow, you would not see anything on this slide. It would just be a white box. But this is an example of, because PowerPoint knows that it's a shape, you can start overlaying these drop shadow effects. We can take that further. You can then give the shape an outline. You just set the outline color and the thickness to whatever you want. And there is something that needs a bit of explaining. When you import an SVG file, that's a standard format that anyone can use. It's not tied to Microsoft at all. If you convert it to a shape in PowerPoint, well, then that becomes the normal shapes that you could have drawn by hand, or like dragged on little boxes and clouds, and the built-in shapes that exist in PowerPoint, they are different at the moment. I wonder whether in future they will actually become the one and the same, but at the moment they are different things in PowerPoint, and they have slightly different features in terms of what you can do. So if you have these icons, I just wanted to let you know, you can right-click and say convert to shape. And then what that means is now you can start using all of the other effects that PowerPoint has for normal shapes. For example, the 3D rotation. So I'm just going to go between these two slides. It's that same SVG that was converted to a shape, and then shapes have all of these 3D rotation settings in PowerPoint, which is quite cool. Here's an example of scan and cut. Has anyone heard of a scan and cut? I just want to check. This is I don't mind spending a minute on this discussion. It's that valuable. Has anyone heard of a scan and cut? Has anyone got one? Does anyone do arts and crafts stuff in the audience? Just unmute yourself and shout out.
Nope.
No.
Okay. Does anyone have an arts or crafts person in their life? Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your somebody in your family that likes arts and crafts stuff.
Yep.
I just need one yay.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I live with one. I'm not one.
This is the best single investment or present or like display of love or, you know, kindness that you can show these people. This is incredible. Imagine you took a scanner, a document scanner, and then you took one of those old-fashioned dot matrix printers, and then you replaced the ink with a surgical blade. And then you strapped a cell phone in the top right corner there so that you have a screen, a touch screen with Wi-Fi and USB. And you sold that as one device. Now, what does that let you do? It's incredible. First of all, you can take any image, any picture, you can feed it in and it will scan it. It will then convert it into a shape inside. It's actually an SVG. And then it will go and cut with the blade. So it's not like a printer where the page goes through only once. It's a special printer where that sheet can move backwards and forwards. So So anyone who has a 3D printer or has seen a CNC machine in like manufacturing, you can think of this as the hobby, the arts and crafts equivalent. So what happens is that this thing will go and cut out the actual shape that you scanned in. And that's pretty cool. What you can also do is upload any old SVG file because it's a standard. And yeah, it's incredible. So you can get other tools, and I'll show you one example called Inkscape for this. But here's the cool part. It's actually more intuitive, I find, to use PowerPoint, because we use it every day, to come up with these SVGs than it is to use Inkscape, which feels more like Photoshop, and it's a professional graphic designer's tool. So I just wanted to make that connection. I've had to cut out I've had to create last-minute SVGs for birthday parties and like little events because my wife needed to have these decorations. And it's great. It was like in 5 minutes, I can mock up a shape, put it on a USB stick, plug it in, and this thing cuts out like 20 of them. It's fantastic. And you can get ultra precision, you know, like cutouts. It's incredible. It's stuff you can't do by hand because it's that precise. So yeah, best investment ever, I would say, if you're into arts and crafts. What do you think, Howard?
I'm busy searching to see how much they cost before I commit to anything.
Okay, good. I'm not a good salesman, so.
Rand, Howard. I've looked already because this I would love, but
How much is it, Sharon?
nearly 9,000 Rand on take.
Yeah, I love her. I don't know if I love her that much.
My wife got it at one for about 5,000 Rand. So it's not not nothing, but I think you got to find those deals. So yeah, it can be expensive, but anyway, it's the sort of gadget.
I won't buy one without you looking at it first because I wouldn't know what's a reasonable one or not. Yeah.
Okay, so well, there you go. There's a connection on how PowerPoint and SVGs can, you know, actually manifest in the real world for crafty scenarios. I mentioned Inkscape. This is a free tool. You could say it's a clone. It's an open source clone. I think it's open source. It's from the it's the Media Wiki guys. You know, Wikipedia that everyone uses. They released this so that more people can create content and, you know, vector content in a format that everyone can use. And it's a pretty decent, you know, Photoshop or Illustrator clone. So maybe the graphic designers in the audience can comment on it if they've used it. Maybe it's horrible compared to other tools. I don't know, but it's definitely more than enough for me. And that's the cool part, that SVGs are what that entire tool is about. So that's an example of the Inkscape logo in Inkscape as an SVG, because that's all it works with. So that's pretty cool, which means you can import those straight into PowerPoint. And then something special about SVGs, and my team will maybe chuckle at this, it's also very developer friendly. So the SVG itself is it's like HTML. If you can zoom in on that little snippet of code there, that logo on the right is just a pile of paths and groups and CSS gradients, and it's extremely developer friendly. So that's pretty cool. So you can go in there and fiddle with it as a developer if you're brave. That's what makes it quite interesting, because you can get vectorized output from your software and it will go into PowerPoint and it will render it beautifully. Any web browser will render SVGs beautifully because it's a standard. Even your phones do it extremely well. So that's the SVG logo in PowerPoint with a drop shadow. So I added that specific drop shadow in PowerPoint just because I wanted to match the other icons on the left. So that's an example of what you can do. What about PNG? So this is Portable Network Graphics, I think it stands for, and this is a standard for bitmaps now. You can't scale these without it going pixely. But what you can do is you can take those shapes or those icons. I then set, just for the purpose of what I'll show you in a second, I just set the color, the fill color, not to be solid, but to be semi-transparent. So in this case, it's 50% transparent, and I just darkened the background so that you can see it. And I left the Supergirl in the middle there with, I think it's about 10% transparency. I can't remember. So you can just see the difference. What we can then do from there is you select all of those guys and you right-click and you say Save as Picture. And then you can save it as a PNG file. And then if you, I mean, you could share that with somebody, but then if you insert it from this device and you drop in the PNG file, this is what it lets you do, which is that transparency is saved with that image. So I've got that video playing in the background, and if you look at the tree, you can kind of see the semi-transparent horizon. You'll see the leaves moving, so it shines through the image. So that's pretty cool. What's significant about that, though, is because it's now an image, like a photo, then there's a whole nother toolbox of effects in PowerPoint that you can tap into. So you can go to Artistic Effects, and then you can start choosing from their little library of styles that you can switch on. So what's interesting to me is that all of the transparent spaces, are not hidden. I just want to be clear, all 7 of these icons they're just one giant image with transparency in between each of them. So that's one example of the effect you can switch on. Here's here's an example, a side-by-side example of the 2 ideas next to each other. And because each one remains an icon on the left, it's a shape, it's an icon in terms of if we added it that way, then you could obviously change the colors and the fills individually. But then for the PNG, you can apply other effects like blurring and those effects as the image as a whole. And yeah, you can see it works pretty well that way. So those are SVGs and PNGs. The next topic I want to cover is slide zoom. So this is an interesting one. It came in, I think, probably a year or a bit longer than that. It's been in for a while. It's fairly new. If you haven't heard of it, now's a good chance to try it out. So you can, in the insert menu, you can go to zoom and you say slide zoom. And then what you do is you choose other slides in your PowerPoint presentation, and they appear as little boxes. And then what's cool about it is that you can click on each one of them to navigate. So we can choose the blue pill or the red pill. And then just by clicking on each of them, I'm sort of doing this infinite zoom effect. Just because I've added, you can think of it as a live link, but a sort of preview of the other slide. And just by clicking on the respective ones, I'm kind of navigating this web. So for any Matrix fans out there, I hope I'm not showing my age too much. Geez, if Matrix is old now, then that's bad news for me. So it's quite a nice effect. Maybe for real content, it helps you navigate where you don't want this linear path through your story. You want to be able to jump around. I've used this effectively in my design docs, where I might have, let's say, 20 concepts that we need to relate. And then you just have these slide zoom links in the corners, so that while you're talking about something, you can immediately just zoom into that other concept as somebody speaks about it to like add an idea or refine it. So that's quite effective. So here I've just gone out of that slide zoom slide, and that's it. So it's an interesting one. My last aspect to cover, and now it's about AI is in everything, including PowerPoint. There's this nice feature, if you haven't seen it yet, under the slideshow menu, Rehearse with Coach. And if there's time, or if you guys are interested, we can actually try it out as a demo, see how well it works. I can show you what it looks like. The cool part is it then records and listens to what you're saying. And then at the end of it, it gives you this nice, sexy looking report that tells you what filler words you use. I say a lot and actually. So this is my 25-second recording last night of this slide. It's true. I do say and actually a lot and other filler words. It shows us the pace at which I was speaking. So I'm green, which I assume is okay. You can see that nice graph of how I speed up and slow down. My pitch, I have a problem of speaking monotone, can work on that. And you can scroll down in the report. But it's a really cool idea to start having this feedback loop. Anyone who attended Tinashe's talk last week, it's great because I think this is another way that you can practice what he was saying. And it's fantastic to see this coming out as a feature that you can start using today. So that's the rehearsal with an AI coach. To be honest, guys, that's really the content. I'm happy to sort of go into any aspect. We can crack open PowerPoint. We can give that AI thing a try. Maybe I'll just pause here any questions. Before I do that, there's this interesting reflection I had just in preparing the slide. These are images from our website from the year 2000. And it's exactly at halfway of my lifetime. I was creating these things in 3D Studio Max and trying to animate them as GIFs with the backgrounds coming through. And now, and that was a mission, that was hard back then. And now to look at what exists in the box in PowerPoint for everyone just to use. It's really incredible to see what's happened. I had to dig out my website from the web archive, the Wayback Machine, if you haven't heard of it. There's people who index the whole internet from day dot almost. So yeah, you could follow that link. It's quite embarrassing, but it's a start. But it's cool to kind of see how far things have come and how commodity these cool effects are. That's just something interesting to ponder. Cool.
Just a question. Do you think that is using the PowerPoint templates that they've got, is that an absolute no-no?
Wow, Howard, I would actually look to you for guidance on that one. I'd be interested in your view and others maybe.
So sometimes it's easy and it's quick and it sets it out for you and you could customize them enough that it doesn't always look like that. But I just wondered if in your experience you found them too limiting maybe, or a little bit passé, I don't know.
Yeah, Howard, my experience of it really centers around this concept. That's what I found. I first asked myself, which one of these two choices do I want? Do I want that design document or the presentation? And first, unconfuse yourself on that one because it's not immediately obvious. Mm-hmm. So when you've chosen presentation, then we're in the right, so when we've chosen not this one, let me go back. When we are sure that it's this elegant presentation. And I must highlight, Howard, I think with technical situations, so maybe not so much for you, I don't know, Howard, but like for the developers, picking the wrong one happens quite often. So let's agree that those templates for me are when I know that I need to present ideas. What I get frustrated with my team or when I see it is that when we should have been focusing on the content, people went and chose those damn templates. And it's so annoying for me because the file is always like 5 megabytes. You got to like email this thing around and then it's bigger than what the client's email can handle. So my advice is when it's about the content, do not use any of those damn things. They just get in the way and they bloat the file size and it's a mission. But then Howard, I think applying the idea of how much am I willing to invest in it? putting these slides together is painful. Doing these animations takes time. And, you know, for me, I enjoy preparing this for an audience that's willing to listen. So it's a worthwhile investment. But the slides that you've seen today, it's probably just over 8 man-hours spread over maybe 3 days. And if you can't afford that investment, then I think those templates are great. And you could pick one to do a trial run to say, is this feeling worth investing more energy? And or was that good enough for the situation? So that would be my advice, Howard. I don't know if others have their experiences or if you agree with that, Howard. What do you think?
I think it makes sense. I see that you can't see the chat, but John Jacob's hand's up as well.
Go for it.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks, Luke. Awesome. Very, very cool. Just a question on like animation and layers. Like if you look, you can see. I don't know if you have any tips on managing it. I feel like sometimes I get my slide and I can't see which layer I'm looking or which like the order of the animation, or because it's all on the same thing. Have you figured out where am I not looking at it in the right way?
Yeah, no, thanks for raising that. I think it's quite a painful one. So my approach, John, and I'm going to now switch to PowerPoint. Maybe we can talk about that one in place. When they added this morph transition, that really changed my life. So most of this presentation is really just morphing between the previous slide and the next one. And I'll show you an example of how we can use that. And I absolutely try and avoid the animation stuff as much as possible because of the difficulties that you're highlighting now. So the animation pane, it's helpful to switch this guy on. I'm going to go to these little subtle variations. So these are animations. Jono, are you talking about this stuff? These layers?
No, I'm actually talking. Yeah, well, I'm talking about the layers. But like, for example, if you had the K highlighted, and then you make the ISS highlighted, and all of those types of things, like the order. So if you actually played the.
Okay. Sorry, carry on.
If you play the presentation, you know how your K is like light. Yeah, like the whole, and then if you go to the next, then the I moves and all of those types of things. But sometimes if they're layered, like if they're on top of each other. But yeah, I think you were going to it, that selection pane.
Yeah, so that is what takes a lot of time, Jonah. There isn't too many things to do about it that I've found. But switching on the features like the selection pane. So I think what I'm understanding from you is if you, here, selection pane, the ordering there does matter. And there is it is worth spending the time, I would say, going backwards through your animation. So what I do a lot of is I prepare the end slide and I spend most of the time doing the layout. And then I'll sit there duplicating these guys and deleting stuff, moving things out. I also want to highlight that if you zoom out, I'm holding control on my keyboard and my mouse wheel. I will often have these guys out here on the edges. I don't want to duplicate it. I will move them out there so that I can control, instead of trying to animate the damn thing, I'm just using the morph feature to get that guy to transition in for me. So that saves me a ton of time. So that little S super guy, it's so easy, intuitive. I just go to the previous slide, move the guys off screen, and then it animates there. I've also discovered that, let's just try this out, see, maybe this can help John in certain animations. If you have something like a shape, I've got a square, and then on the next slide, I've got I want to have a circle. So I'm going to draw a new circle just to show you that they can be created independently. Insert, and then we go to shapes, and I'm going to take this oval. If we switch on that morph, it's just going to fade out because, first of all, they're not the same names, and they're not even the same shapes at all. But apparently what you can do is you can rename this, and I don't know where this is documented. This is crazy. So I'm double clicking on that. You add 2 exclamation marks. And then you go to the next guy and you add 2 exclamation marks. And I think they have to have the same name after that. So thingy. And my impression is that this will only work now for one shape at a time, but let's see. Now it does that fluid transition. So double exclamation marks, same name. I think it only supports one of those per set. I don't know. And to me, it feels like a new feature that's probably going to get better UI support in future. But Jono, maybe that can also help with simplifying some of those weird transitions.
Yeah.
So there's a little trick that I've discovered by watching YouTube PowerPoint videos. I watch them sometimes. Okay. Thanks, Jono.
Peter also has a question, Luke.
Thanks, Peter. Go ahead.
Hi, Luke. Yeah, it's been great. What I'm just interested in, it's sort of off what you're doing now. When John asked about the animation, I thought, and you were talking to about the effort and when to spend that effort over the templates. Can you maybe show that slide that you have of the robots that we've been working on? And I see that as an example of when to spend effort, because it tells the story so well that the time, however many minutes or hours it took to make that, we've shown it so many times and it's paid off. So if you, just as a comment to when to spend that effort of a template versus doing all of this stuff. So
is this one, Peter, or the compliance one with the like network stuff? Maybe it doesn't
the one
matter.
with the hands, the animation of the hands taking stuff, that robot approach. Yeah.
Okay, let me just think about that.
But if you weren't going to plug it, I'm plugging it.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. So let me just get my bearings. It's interesting. I think what you're commenting on, Peter, is if you're going to show this presentation, I would say more than 3 times, it's probably worth spending a little bit more energy, and that's worth it. But if it's not guaranteed that it's going to be more than 3 times, then I wouldn't. It doesn't pay back unless you're seeing it as practice, you know, with your PowerPoint skills. But it's difficult to justify it. And just while I've got this on my screen, also when people say see that you got 105 slides, they freak out. Why? Because we've been preconditioned. All the sales guys shout at me, and it's like, you know, 1 minute per slide or 2 minutes per slide. Are you saying we're going to sit here for 200 minutes? No, I'm not. I want to highlight that unfortunately, with YouTube around and content everywhere, if you like listen to the video guidance, and if you watch the TV that you're watching now, you'll see that every 2 seconds or less, sometimes, they're cutting the scene to a new scene. And unfortunately, we're now starting to expect that everywhere. So I feel like there's a very difficult bar to reach with these PowerPoints, which is the old-fashioned, like 2 minutes per slide, 30 seconds per slide, feels like a lifetime for me when you compare it to like what you feel in everyday YouTubes that you're getting these days. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm still trying to figure out that balance. Peter, 1 second. Okay, any other comments or question? I just need a minute to find this guy. If Sia's on the line and he has that handy, maybe we can put him on the spot. Any other comments, or does anyone have advice on what Howard asked with those pre-canned templates? Maybe you found cases where they work really well.
So I found that using those templates and then as you add your own content using their design suggestions, then you get different versions of that template.
Yeah, those design suggestions are sometimes very good. I agree.
Yeah.
Very, yeah.
Sorry, so I'll.
Yay, graphic designer. Thanks, Ernst.
So generally, like it like because I missed some of that just because sorry, kitten problems aside, but but generally it's like Luke was saying, it's context is the most important. So I think the most to use just a standard plain one, like just the plain as Luke showed in the design document, that's sort of like your safe bet. But I think using the templates is not a bad thing, because if you want to go for something that is more flashy and you don't really have much like design experience yourself and you don't have the time to custom create one, I think the templates tend to be a fairly good like starting point of like just a little bit more zhuzhed up version of slides that you can use. So I don't think they're no-goes. I think that they're actually they're like any tool. They're good to use, but don't come on. Sorry, my cat. But don't cat on the keyboard there for a moment. Don't like it shouldn't like limit you if you need something to change and you need something to be slightly different. Don't feel like you are limited and must do it according to the template either. So that's sort of my approach to it. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's a design faux pas. It's just it's a tool for you to use. That's another thing.
I'm loving the sound of the cat.
Yeah, sorry, I've got a kitten, and the lady who helps us with the house is here, and he's afraid of the vacuum cleaner, so.
Oh, that's awesome. Love it.
Can I just ask Peter quickly, is this the one you meant, Peter? This robot guy?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I think this is an interesting transition. I just want to point it out. The switch from presentation to content. In this slide, I'm guilty of confusing the two, I would say, possibly. But anyway, you can see I've got the background at top, sort of template coming through at the top. I've got little videos and animations and stuff. But then this is what I would say is like a great example of what comes out in those design docs. So I'm not going to talk through all of it, but you can see my very crude attempt out of just circles and rectangles, how I make a robot hand. I kind of set the scene with that animation to like precondition you into what I'd like you to imagine, but heck, I don't have the patience or the skills to actually pull it off for real. So I'll make one of those, and then I animate it like this using the morphs, and I don't care that the thing breaks apart in the middle. It doesn't matter. I can start highlighting how one robot builds the next robot, which takes stuff, builds stuff, spawns new robots, builds infrastructure, saves stuff to manifests, deploys to EC2, boots up the thing, automatically unit tests, automation tests our front end, saves results everywhere, and then switches off the robots. Did you guys get that?
Yeah, I'm unmuting. I'm clapping my hands aloud.
Okay, cool. So the alternative, let me just be clear, the alternative would have been a bunch of scripts. And you're like, what do you present to people? It's like, I'm not going to run it because this thing might take, 10 minutes to execute that whole pipeline. And even if I did run it, you'd be like looking at consoles, or I don't know what you'd be looking at, to be honest. And then I'd be waving my hands all the time. It's like, yo, we just deployed this guy, and look, I don't know. Like, I find that I have to get good at doing this stuff. I have to be good at being a crappy graphic designer, because if you want speak to Ernst. I have to practice being a good graphic designer just to get across that was like, I don't know, less than 20 seconds. Extremely long and tedious pipelines that we're creating with software. So, don't know. Thanks, Peter. Thanks for the plug. But yeah, there's my little wiggly robot arms. This was quite quick to do, by the way. This was not hours and hours. This was quite fun. I mean, once I got the first robot down, then you're just moving shapes around. And PowerPoint does the rest with the morphs. So it's pretty cool. I think that's really it from my side. Unless there's any other comments, questions. Thank you for listening. I appreciate everyone's interaction. This is a whole new tool, a whole new box of goodies that they've added to PowerPoint. I urge you guys to play around or give that AI coach a go. I really learned quite a bit about how many stop words, how many pause words I use all the time, just from that guy. Yeah, let me know if you pick
absolutely amazing. That's what I can say. Absolutely brilliant. I'm feeling like a total idiot when it comes to PowerPoint now.
Luke, a question for you as well. Dylan?
Dylan, yeah, go for it, Dylan.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to put up my hand.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Luke, yeah, amazing stuff. You know, these little funky, cool tools that hide sometimes from us and from our experience and understanding on how to use them is really incredible to see. Very impressive. So thank you very much for that. When we talk about masterclasses, this is a really good example of taking it to the next level. So thank you so much for your time and the effort that you put into this and for bringing us the benefit of your experience on with these tips. I've just posted the link to the feedback form in the chat for everyone. So please feel free to go and click on that link and give us your feedback on the session. Otherwise, we say thank you to all of you. And we do have 5 minutes left. So if anybody still wants to ask a question, please go ahead. But if you do need to drop off, then that's absolutely fine too. Not seeing any more questions. Great. In that case, thanks so much, everyone, for your time. Thanks very much, Luke. Appreciate that. Cheers, guys.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thanks, Luke. Brilliant.
Thanks, Luke.
Pleasure.
It was really nice.
Cool.
Awesome stuff, Luke. Thanks, man. Cheers.
That's I remember that little guy.
Do you?
Yeah,
put
but
this
I
up the
can't
other
remember
day.
exactly what. But that's so long ago. Yeah.
And like, it's so bad, Ernst, because there were a whole bunch of people in in my team. They're like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, oh damn.
It was an advert or something. I can't remember. And it was like line or a telephone. I can't remember. And then he would like come out like, yes, but I remember it very clearly, but I can't remember what it was for.
Yeah. No. So I think the cool part is with that morph transition, I'm pretty certain that we could pull off, if you had the patience. Okay, that's my really, really crude version, but I'm certain that we could pull off a linear transform there, whatever. Let's see how that morphs. Okay, so if I position it the same place, yeah, that should be good. but it means that this would be possible. Like,
Yeah.
I think if somebody had enough energy, we could pull off a little La Linea guy in there.
Yeah, that's it, La Linea.
That's it. Yeah, Martin, you got it.
This makes me think back to my After Effects days, which I haven't touched in ages. But doing the rotoscoping stuff where you basically draw lines around things, and then you go like a couple of frames, and then like draw the lines again, and it depended, right? Some of it was a lot of fun. Like, it's fun to watch the thing come to life. Like, we once did a promo for Movie Magic where it was like Optimus Prime like backflipping off a building.
Yeah.
And it took me a week. I had to rotoscope out Optimus Prime as he did like a backflip. But then we put like 3D text. There was like in the like mid ground behind him, but like in front of the ground. And that was like, it was a lot of work, but it was cool to see, even if it was only lasted like 10 seconds. Because I had to rotoscope out debris and all the different things. But you could watch him in the vector line basically that I had to trace, like do a backflip. So it was pretty cool.
Ernst, I know that you like into Blender. Is that right?
Yeah.
I've discovered there's a whole bunch of people around the company as well. So I think it would be cool to start building up little libraries of like Blender models, because now you can actually use them in, like, here's an animated guy in PowerPoint, right? Which is quite crazy.
That is really cool. I didn't even realize you could do that, like have a 3D model.
Exactly.
Is it so it's an actual 3D model, like an OBJ or something?
OBJ, 100%. And it's like insert, and you're like, where? Pictures? No, 3D models. And then, yeah, it's these guys. Check it out. That's pretty decent, eh?
That is really cool. I mean, I wonder, like, I'm just like, my brain is going, it's like, what kind of rendering engine is it using? Like, how?
It's crazy.
It's crazy. This and Excel are always the like things that surprise me. Like,
and like they're making it even this, like, poor man's Blender. It's surprisingly okay for simple things. So I'm thinking for like technical thingamajigs, and like you could export this and then import it there, and like, you're done. It's crazy now.
That's and on a completely side tangent, I've never looked into it, but I probably should. I wonder how the 3D paint works with like 3D printing stuff. Like, I'm sure you can export this, because I had to build but I used a very basic CAD software, build like a fix for our toilet, and I had to 3D print it. But I mean, basically all it was a cylinder that I had to reattach and like create an extension.
There's a whole other app for just the printing. Print 3D. Push start print 3D, and like, here it is. But yeah, I don't know. It's coming, eh?
Yeah.
It's like everywhere now. So,
yeah.
It's cool. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Sorry.
Cheers. Keep
Cheers. Thanks for that.
Bye.